Hey folks, welcome back to the shop. I'm Wes, media producer and resident bow technician for Redline Bowhunting. And today we're gonna dive into a little bit of coffee talk about how to properly set up a slider bow sight and the nuances of issues that you need to make sure you watch out for when setting this sight up properly. Now, when I say a slider bow sight, it means that, that elevation up and down for single, dual, or three pin sights where you can move it to individual yardages, not a slider sight of a dovetail, right? So the biggest thing that we're having is a lot of people are calling in asking why can't they sight in their sight properly. They're having this, everyone seems to be having the same issue. So today we're going to dive in really deep on the things to watch out for and the things that you may need to go to a pro shop for. So make sure you stay tuned and we're going to dive in pretty deep on this. So in the past, I've done quite a few videos on how to set up a slider bow sight, whether it's our single pin, dual pin, three pin, and I always touch on a few things that seem to maybe get muddled up in a lot of the sidebar things that I like to talk about because I'll just go off on tangents, right? And I'm sure that I will confuse a lot of people within those tangents, so I'm going to try to stay very on task and very simplistic when it comes to talking about how to sight in these sights and the problems that you may be having. Now, our main issue is people seem to have trouble bringing their arrow up to their 20-yard mark, whether it's a single pin, two pin, or three pin. Now, just a disclaimer, guys, if you're running a different slider bow sight out there, this is pretty universal. So the issues that you're going to find that you may have with a Redline is going to be the same issues you're going to have with some other slider bow sight on the market today if things are not set up properly. So the biggest thing that we seem to have, again, are people not being able to bring that arrow up to their 20-yard mark. Now, what I mean by that is that when you're at 20 yards, you're shooting, and you're like, oh, I'm 7 inches low. And you take your gang adjustment, and what I mean by gang adjustment is right here, I have the RL2 right here, the DTM. And what I mean is that right here is your gang adjustment, right? So you're up and down for your manual major adjustments. A lot of people are gonna bottom these out all the way down to the bottom because that's your first movement to make sure you can bring your 20-yard shot to your target level. And then after that, you can start using the wheel, going down just a little bit, using it slightly, depending on the speed of your bow, depends on how much you will use of the wheel. But a lot of people don't want to use that wheel mainly because they think that they're going to start losing the amount of space that you may need to reach out from 20 to 100 to 120, things of that nature. And I agree with you. We want to make sure we use that wheel as minimal as possible. But remember, you can use that wheel no matter what sight on the market you're using. Use that wheel a little bit to bring it up. If you're only down 2-3 inches, use the wheel a little bit. It's okay. But what a lot of people are having issues is where they're using the wheel so much that when they put a tape on there, they're only able to reach out to, let's say, 60 yards on a single pin without their sight housing touching their arrow when they shoot, right? And now that's a problem. And I'm going to give you the first scenario that this is 95% of all the issues that when they call in, this is usually the issue they have. Now they'll call in and I ask everything about your setup. I want to know exactly what your setup is and what arrow you're shooting, what's your draw length, what's your poundage, what kind of bow are you shooting, and I can get a real good feel of what that bow is doing. Now, I'll tell you, anything from 270 feet per second and up, a single pin or a dual pin is pretty good. You might not be able to reach out to 120 yards with a single pin, or maybe your max would be 80 yards, but you'll still be able to reach out and touch something at those speeds. But once you get above 285-ish, you really don't have an issue with a single pin. But anything below 280, right around there, I try to just urge people, if they want a movable sight, use a 3-pin. It's going to give you a lot more space to move up and down. But again, see, I'm starting to go off on a tangent. But anyway, so these people are usually coming in with a bow setup that is plenty fast for a single, dual, or 3-pin. And they're still shooting incredibly low and they cannot bring that arrow up for some reason without really diving into that wheel to which then you're losing that room to put a sight tape on there, right? So the biggest thing is that your peep height is not in the proper spot. And the reason being is because there is a high chance that you had a fixed pin set on your bow when it was set up originally. Now I'll go into the other aspect of that as well, but this is usually the biggest problem. So you had a fixed pin on your bow before this slider bow sight. You bought the slider bow sight, you brought it home, you slapped it on. You're like, I'll be good. I'll get the third axis or the 3 axis points adjusted later, but I should be good. And you just can't sight it in. Well, when you were at the bow shop, the likelihood of this happening is very high. So you're at the bow shop, you got a brand new bow, you got a fixed pin sight, you put the fixed pin sight on, and when they had you draw back to line up your peep to that sight, the sight was on the bow. You drew back and you said, oh, the peep is a little too high. They bring it down. Oh, the peep's a little too low. They'll bring it back up. Oh, the peep is perfect. So now you have a perfect setup. You're gonna shoot, everything's fine, and then you go and put this slider bow sight on, thinking that your peep sight and where it's at is perfectly fine because it was fine for your, the fixed pin sight that you had on there before, but that is wrong. A slider bow sight moves up and down. The housing moves up and down constantly when you're going at different yardages. Now, the trick is to put your peep sight, to place your peep sight on your string without a sight on your bow. So you do the same thing you did when you set up your fixed pin, but you do it without that sight on the bow. So you draw back, nice and level to the ground. You don't want to be down, you don't want to be up. And you come back into your anchor points, assuming that your anchor points are proper and correct. And then you do all that with your eyes closed. So I keep my eyes closed, I draw back nice and even to the ground without being down or up. And then I touch my nose to the string, and then I open my dominant eye. And when I open my dominant eye, I want to be able to see straight through that peep perfectly without having to look up or down or move my anchor points. I want to be right in the anchor point that I want to be in, and when I open my eye without a sight on the bow, I want to look straight through that peep perfectly. So I would adjust it accordingly. Once I open my eye and everything is perfect and it's exactly where I want it, now my peep sight is set. Now when you do that and you had already had a fixed pin and then you go back to readjust your peep, I almost guarantee you, man, a little indigestion. I can almost guarantee you that your peep sight has now risen a little bit. And that's just kind of the way the body works with the bow. Again, this is not all perfect science, guys. This is just my experience. This is what I do, and this is what seems to help a lot of people fix their issue with sighting in their slider bow sight. So there's a good chance that your peep sight has now risen when you've done it properly. Now you put your slider bow sight on, you go to wherever you think 20 yards would be. You know, you can, like I said in the other videos, start at 7, move back to 10, 15, then you're 20. And then you sight it in from there. If you're still, now, if that was really the only problem, you're gonna be perfect. You might have to tap into that, that wheel a little bit, but not too much, and you should be good to go. Now, if you're still having problems, there's one other thing that you can definitely have a pro shop check, or even yourself if you have the tools, and that is your center shot. So when I say a center shot, a lot of people will think that when I'm thinking center shot, I'm thinking your left and right on your rest, whether it's left or right. But what I'm also talking about is your up and down of your knocking point and your rest. So when you have an arrow through here, now I can't guarantee that mine's perfect, but when you have an arrow through here, a lot of people, and depending on the bow it is, you're gonna want this arrow going directly through these burger buttons. You'll see that there are these 2 holes right here. Some have 1, some have 0, some have 2. But you know, for a shop, they're gonna probably want the arrow going right directly through the middle of these burger buttons. Now, sometimes that's okay and sometimes it's not. I'm not gonna get into the details of that. But essentially, you're gonna want your rest, one, not hitting the shelf of your bow when it drops down, so a drop away. See how it didn't touch there? So I'll do this. I'll do that again without the arrow touching. So see how it didn't touch my shelf? That means that my arrow is not going to get touched by that rest, meaning that I'm not going to have any issues of that rest hitting my arrow and my arrow doing weird stuff. But you want to make sure that your rest is not too low on your string, or I'm sorry, your knocking point too low on your string and your rest too low or too high, of course. But that'll be another issue. That's a very technical issue that I don't want to get into because we don't have enough time on this video. But it's definitely something to make sure that when you go to your pro shop, I can't get this on there, but when you go to your pro shop, it's one of the things to make sure you ask them and kind of make sure that they look at, because if that knocking point is too high and your rest is too low, obviously that coincides, and then your rest is too high, your knocking point is too low. But a lot of the common thing is going to be your knocking point is too high, your rest is too low, and your arrow is already on a downward trajectory, meaning that your longer distances, it's going to be hard to bring up that 20-yard arrow, compounding on any other issues that you may have. So anyway, guys, I hope this helped you out. I know it was kind of quick and right to the point, and hopefully I hit the spots, but make sure you check those things. It's peep height, and then make sure you check your rest or knocking point height, because that is going to affect your arrow drastically. And the main purpose is because you came from a fixed pin sight and move to a slider bow sight without properly setting up your peep to the sight that you're shooting. So make sure that you use your local pro shop, find a good pro shop that you can trust. I promise they have the tools and they have the knowledge to make sure that you're successful in the field, because your success emulates their success, right? So if they're successful with you, you're going to be successful in the field. They obviously don't want to set you up with anything bad just to earn a buck, because if you are set up improperly, you're obviously not going to go back to them. So just a lot of things to keep in mind. If you guys have any other questions within this topic, drop them in the comments, and I will try my best to create a video out of that. And if you're having any issues understanding my videos, by all means, put them in the comments, because I'm trying to make these better. I know in the past that I would just go off on crazy tangents like I am right now, and I would muddle up a lot of details. So if there's anything in the past that you guys would want me to clarify, or anything in the future that you'd like me to keep being more clear, by all means, drop them in the comments or shoot us an email, and we'll make sure we make that happen for you guys. So thanks for watching. I really hope this helps you sight in that slider bow sight, whether you got it from us or anybody else, because I want you guys successful in the field. And slider bow sights are such a great asset and a great tool to a bow setup that if you don't do it properly, you're kind of missing out. So again, make sure you go to that pro shop, guys, and know your equipment. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.